What is going on, everyone? It's your boy Luke here for our DFS live stream here for round 3 at the Valero Texas Open. A little bit later than I wanted to go live. Of course, these guys are just taking forever on the golf course. And at a certain point, I just threw my hands up, said, you know what, we're going to put up an incomplete spreadsheet. There's some scores on there that might not be final. So there might be some mistakes on the spreadsheet when we go through it, but just wanted to go out here, get you guys this content as soon as possible because I know it's Friday night. The slate is going to start pretty early tomorrow morning, and I want to make sure it has enough shelf life. So I can see Catch Me If You Can's already down here. He says, you can't help that PGA players play 9-hour rounds, and I wish I could, right? They're out there, especially some of those lower tier players towards the end of the day, just kind of taking their time. A lot of them are towards the cut line, so I guess I understand it, but annoying nonetheless. So let's go ahead and hop right into the preview for this week, or I should say for tomorrow's slate at the very least. And let's start with a review of what we saw today, which in terms of difficulty, the course played a little bit easier today than I expected. You can see it still played over par. I told you that would be the case, but I expected that to be closer to half a stroke over par. The wind was a factor in the round today. It didn't come in until right around 10:30 or 11 a.m., so came in a little bit later than we expected, and also came in with a little bit less intensity. It was towards the 15 to 20 mile an hour range rather than that 20 to 25 mile an hour range, which is what kept scores at least moderately successful here. But go ahead and separate this Y wave. You can see that in the afternoon when the wind kicked up, it did play significantly more difficult than what we saw in the morning. But even in the morning wave where it played to 0.39 shots under par, that was a little bit harder than what we saw for day one. So certainly the golf course is firming out a little bit, getting a little bit faster in terms of the green speeds. So I would expect that to continue throughout the weekend. But in terms of weather, it is going to be beautiful for tomorrow. So this is the same weather forecast that we used for yesterday. It's the San Antonio airport, which I was actually educated is pretty close to TPC San Antonio, which on a map, it doesn't look that close, but it's about a 15, 20-minute drive. So actually a little bit more accurate than I expected. But in terms of the wind, you can see it's not much to speak of, right? 7 miles an hour towards the start of the day actually dies down to almost non-existent in this 10 to 1 p.m. range. And then in the afternoon, just 6 to 7 mile an hour sustained winds, which for PGA Tour players is nothing. That's like playing in a dome out there. And day one, we did see scoring a little bit better than what we saw for day two. Again, in general, it was right around a 0.18 shot difference between Thursday and Friday. And I would expect some of the same. Now, the one difference, of course, is in rounds 3 and 4, we do have a relatively higher caliber of player in the field. A lot of those amateurs, the guys that aren't necessarily in form, were cut out of the field. I mean, there's some guys out there like Gsluke that ended up shooting 8 over par through 2 rounds. Not going to have to worry about those type of guys over the weekend. So in general, the scoring average might be a little bit better than this 2/100ths of a stroke over par that we saw for today. But the course in general is going to be right around the same difficulty. So let's go ahead and hop over to the player pool, kind of get an idea of who we're actually going to be playing here for Saturday. And it's a smaller field, right? Not that many people are making the cut. It's going to be right around the 72 to 73 people. Of course, there's plenty of people playing 18. There were at least 3 or 4 people right on the cut line. So we'll have to see what ends up happening with that. Could very well have a few guys make the cut that weren't before. Could very well have a few people drop out. So like I said before, this score column right here and the fact that they're even in the player pool to begin with might be up in the air. So keep that in mind, especially some of the guys towards 2 under par, even 1 under par. Depending on how they play hole number 18 or hole number 17 for some of them, they very well might not make the cut. So just keep that in mind. That's just a result of me going live a little bit earlier than I wanted to. But at the top of the board, there's going to be a couple guys that are going to be mega chalk, which are going to be Corey Connors. I'm expecting Gary Woodland to be by far the highest owned guy on the slate. I'm expecting Johnny Vegas to get quite a bit of attention. Same thing with Adam Hadwin, and a little bit of attention to guys like Chris Kirk and McNeely as well. Just in general, it's going to be relatively spread out, but 36% ownership for Woodland is way higher than it probably should be. 24% for Johnny Vegas is probably higher than it should be. And that's a result of not having these 10K options. Usually in Showdown, we're going to have 3 to 4 of those stud options to choose from that are all going to be relatively nicely priced because the soft pricing that we have for Showdown. And that's just not the case. The highest priced golfer is Jordan Spieth. Second highest priced golfer going to be Corey Connors, which is actually a little bit more expensive than what he had for the 4-round stuff. So not getting quite the bargain with Corey Connors that you were for 4-round stuff. And then you have the 9K range, right? Pretty much all of them ended up making the cut there in the 9K range. And then you have some strong 8K options as well. So from a roster construction standpoint, I'm expecting the chalk to be even chalkier than usual. So perhaps this 36% on Woodland is actually a little bit low. Wouldn't be surprised if he came in closer to 40, maybe even 45% owned. Guys like, let's say, Maverick McNeely, even guys like a Corey Connors, could come in closer to 24, 25% ownership, right? My algorithm, it works based on just projected points, kind of assuming what the quote unquote optimal lineup for the public is going to be. And then it uses those metrics to calculate ownership. It doesn't necessarily keep in mind roster construction and the fact that people love playing the studs up top, right? Because when I ran an optimized lineup before I went on here, used by projections and whatnot, it was just having me live in this 8K range. It was having me take 3, 4, sometimes even 5 guys from this 8K range, rounding it out with somebody in the mid to low 7K range, and running with that with a lineup. So unless, I was going in hand building, changing everything myself, it was kind of avoiding some of these guys up top. So from a strategy standpoint, we will talk a little bit more about it later on, but there is a very compelling case to be made, especially for round 3 tomorrow, to go ahead and start your lineup off, maybe at the most here in the 9K range, if not in the 8K range, which of course isn't something that I'm typically saying here on the channel. It's a little bit more of a unique situation just because the top end talent is really just isn't that top end, right? I mean, outside Jordan Spieth, all these guys priced, I'd go the whole way down to somebody like Keane Bradley, aren't used to being in this 9K range. Of course, maybe Tony Finau aside, these are maybe the 1 or 2 events every single year that you're going to see them priced in this range. So it just makes for an interesting scenario, especially when a lot of these 7K options are almost as good as what we have in the 9K. We're going to go player by player, but guys like Robert McIntyre, for example, even Ryan Palmer, Sahith Theegala, when they're playing their best golf, they're almost identical to these guys in the 9K range, right? There's not that much of a talent gap between the guys that are Chris Kirk at $9,400, and then, quite frankly, Robert McIntyre at $7,700. I would actually say, at least this is just a personal opinion on the fact, because they don't really play the same tour. They don't have a lot of shots gained metrics that we can use as an apples to apples type of comparison, but Robert McIntyre is a better player than Chris Kirk. So, you're getting a lot of inherent value with these 7K guys, and I wouldn't necessarily be against only playing guys in the 8 and 7K range. So again, we'll talk about that a little bit later with the strategy, but I'm not enthralled with these guys up top. I have a little bit of interest in Jordan just because the putter can get nuclear hot for him. The approach play today was decent. It was a lot better than what we saw on Thursday. And the off the tee play is always going to be a variable for Spieth. But the one thing you can get away with at this golf course is spraying it a little bit off the tee. So at $10,300, he at least has some upside, but he is far from my favorite play on the slate. He's somebody who I'm probably going to be right around the field, maybe at the most for tomorrow, just in case he has that spike performance with the putter. Let's move on to some of these 9K options, which, again, I'm not all that enthralled with. Even Maverick McNeely, who right now is actually in a little bit of a cut sweat. We're not sure whether he's going to make the cut, but let's assume that he ends up making the cut there. He's got the skill set that we're looking for at this golf course, but he's going to be highly owned because there's just no one else to play up top, right? You're not going to have 40% of the ownership on a Corey Connors. So as a result, people are going to take a little bit of stances on guys like Maverick McNeely. At 17.8% ownership, I don't love the play, much like I don't love somebody like a Jordan Spieth, but he's very similar with the putter and the fact that he can get really hot really fast. Very good skill set fit, much like a Jordan Spieth. So I will be taking a few shots on those two players, but they are far from my favorite plays on the slate. In fact, guys like Siwoo Kim, guys like Tony Finau, I like a little bit more regardless of price. So let's go ahead and talk about these two guys. First off, Tony Finau, he's been really solid from tee to green, but the guy just can't buy a putt. He hit, I believe it was 15 of 18 greens there on day 1. In day 2, he hit at least 14 greens in regulation. He's putting himself in position off the tee. He's been a little bit more accurate than usual as well. So in general, he's doing everything we need him to do. And around the green, he's more than serviceable. Going to have pristine conditions tomorrow. He should be able to play a little bit of target practice at that type of price tag. And as it's well documented, as we've talked about numerous times this week on the channel, that guy is a POA Anua specialist. So he's probably my favorite play on the slate. I know he's only 3 under par. He hasn't really done anything flashy to this point of the week, but he's at least got the job done, right? He made the cut. He's within 7 strokes of the lead now that Ryan Palmer's at 10 under par. But by the end of the weekend, I could see him there in the top 10. He's not playing his best golf because of the putter, but the tee to green play, he's top 20 player in the field. So somebody that I definitely think has the upside inside of him. Siwoo Kim, of course, is a highly volatile player. Hasn't had his best stuff to this point of the week, but is still getting the job done. So much like his, Tony Finau, for Siwoo, he's just got to clean up that putting a little bit. Also has to get that rock to drop a little bit more. And if he does so, could go out there, shoot 4 or 5 under par tomorrow. And that's my target score. In terms of my modeling, what I'm looking for as a ceiling performance, I'm looking for 5 under par. That's what I set in all of my optimizers when I'm running my sims and everything like that. I think if you can get 5 under par from all 6 of your players tomorrow, you're going to be taking down at least most of these large field GPPs. Moving down into this 8K range, I don't love Gary Woodland because of the ownership. I mean, I get that he's playing some pretty solid golf, but this is Showdown. This is a 1-round sample size. Anything can happen. And if you're going to tell me that about half of the lineups are going to own Gary Woodland, I would assume in higher stakes contests, perhaps single entry type of formats, he's going to be even higher owned than 40%, could crack the even 50% mark. Just not something that I'm looking to invest in. So I understand the play. Before the week, I understood the play as well, right? He was somebody who was in my player pool before the week. Not in my personal player pool. In my setup 150, he actually didn't make the final player pool. But in terms of what I gave out, right, as a spreadsheet, he was on there. So I understand the play. He's somebody who the metrics look pretty decent for. You can see he's top 20 in all 3 of those rankings there. But again, 40, 50% ownership, regardless of the player, is going to be hard to swallow, particularly when it's in a 1-round sample size. I'd be a little bit more willing to if it was a 4-round contest, believe it or not. But for a 1-round sample size, yeah, it's really tough to eat that type of ownership. Keegan Bradley, we can be really short with Keegan. He just doesn't have the putter I'm looking for. Even if he goes out there and has his best stuff tee to green, typically he does, right? He's a very sharp tee to green player. I always question his upside, his ability to get to 6, 7 under par. Because unlike guys like a Tony Finau and Siwoo Kim, they pop from time to time with the flat stick. Keegan Bradley does it maybe once or twice a year. So in Showdown, he's typically not somebody I'm looking to play unless he's on a Bermuda grass surface, because that is the one surface where time to time you see him have those pop performances. But you can see on Poa Nua, he loses over a stroke per round, which is the worst in the field for anybody with a legit sample size. Let's go and see if there's any questions down on chat. Devin Davis says, off topic, but did you play any NBA tonight? I did not. Because of the live stream, because I was trying to put together the spreadsheet over the last hour or so, did not have the time to dedicate to NBA tonight. In fact, usually I don't play NBA. It's something that I used to take a lot more seriously. I used to play it every single day religiously for the last 2 to 3 years. But over the last 2 to 3 months, I've played it maybe once or twice a week. Just haven't been on top of the rotations as much as usual. And with NBA DFS, if you're not playing every single day, you're playing at a disadvantage because most of those guys are playing day in and day out. They're very used to these rotations. They're on top of all of the news. I mean, when you're an NBA DFS player, you know the NBA like the back of your hand. So just wouldn't be profitable for me to just hop into it right now. So I'm going to wait till next season. I might play it just casually from time to time for fun, but you're not going to see me playing professionally here until the end of the season. Catch Me If You Can says, no Woodland, make the GPPs official now. My wife already has the money spent. Hopefully you end up playing well. You said no Woodland. Yeah, I don't have any Woodland myself, right? I ended up talking about him as a play. Just I couldn't fit him into my lineups. I had Jordan Spieth, I had Bryson in my player pool, which of course went great. Guys like Rory McIlroy, who of course also missed the cut. Just a lot of guys up top I wanted to get leverage to. And with Abraham Answer withdrawing, I talked about this in actually a lot of detail in the Discord chat. With Answer withdrawing, that 16% ownership pretty much evenly distributed between the 4 to 5 guys priced around him. And you're talking about a 3 to 4% increase per player for those 4 to 5 players that were priced around him. And as a result, to get leverage on those guys, I had to add at least 7 to 8% to all those players, sometimes more, depending on what percentage of lineups I had him in beforehand, which meant that somebody like Gary Woodland that was 20% owned, that was eating up 30% of my lineups, I had to axe him, right? To get leverage on those players, you can't play everyone up top. So the Abraham Answer WD, which I wish happened after lock, because of course a lot of people would have been burned by that, also kind of burned me, keeping me away from Woodland. So that's just something to keep in mind with DFS is you can't play all the guys that you like every week. It's unfortunate. You kind of got to make those decisions. And from time to time, it's going to work out. And from time to time, it's not. So just, yeah, man, I wish I had more Woodland, that's for sure. But I don't know. I see him getting into some trouble over the weekend here. He's not the most consistent player off the tee. Let's just say that. He can get in trouble very quickly. Luke List here at $8,500. He looked horrible today, so that's why he's not in my player pool for tomorrow. The putter wasn't really the issue. It was the off the tee play. He was putting himself in a lot of trouble. Not that usual self off the tee that's both long and accurate. And for Luke List to have any type of legit success, he's got to have that tee to green play, right? It's got to be at the 2 to 3 strokes gained per round type of level. Then he's got to go out there and be at least a neutral putter. So, the putter wasn't there today. The tee to green play wasn't either. So that definitely concerns me. Russell Knox looked really rough today. He shot 7 up under par day one, shot 4 over par today. I believe he wasn't done with his round by the time he went live here. But at 12.6% ownership, I don't think many people are going to go to him. In fact, I think this number might be a little bit high, might come in the single digit owned range because people felt burned by him today, right? And anytime you play Showdown, you probably shouldn't be playing the guy that was first round leader because he's going to be super highly owned. I mean, that guy today is going to be Gary Woodland at 36.7% ownership. Just think about it, right? The guy's going to be super high owned at 40, maybe even 50% owned range for some of these single entry contests. And what are the odds that he goes out there and is a top 6 performer tomorrow, right? When there's, let's see, as of right now, 71 guys that are making it through the cut. It's just not all that likely, right? It's a not 40 to 50% chance. We know that, like, just without even running sims, it's very, very obvious that it wouldn't be in the 40, 50% range. So that's why you're going to be trying to fade a lot of this chalk, especially some of the unnecessary chalk in this range. Let's move down a little bit further down here. So Gary Woodland, again, he's that 40, 50% owned range down here. Just a lot of guys in this mid-tier range that fit that same type of bill, right? So like I said, Russell Knox, he's on the opposite end of that spectrum, right? So the guys that got burned, that burned you are the opposite, right? They're going to be super lowly owned. So the 40, 50% owned Gary Woodland, somebody like Russell Knox, rather than 12.6%, which is where the algorithm has them, might be like 4 to 5% owned, right? That psychology factor plays a huge, huge, huge part in the Showdown type of contest. And, for 4-round stuff, you have a week to kind of get over yourself. It ends on Sunday. You're not making your lineups ideally until Wednesday night. So you kind of have 3 days to decompress. People are a little bit more willing to go back to those guys that burned him. But I'll tell you, if somebody burns you on Friday, people do not want to play that guy on Saturday. You just don't have that time to decompress, kind of get over the fact that he ended up burning you there. So I would not be surprised if Russell Knox is way, way lower owned than I expect. Matt Kuchar's going to be super high owned tomorrow. I get it. He's great at this golf course, but the ball striking numbers aren't as consistent as I'm looking for. Just would have to carry himself with that putter to get to that 4 to 5 under par range. So I don't expect that to happen, especially at a 24.6% projected owned number there. Rasmus Højgaard at $7,800. On day one, he gained over 4 strokes with the putter. Today wasn't nearly as effective with the putter, and that's why he ended up shooting. It was 1 over par the last time I saw him. Might be back to even par, might be even worse. Who knows? He had at least 3 to 4 holes left there, but definitely didn't look his sharpest self, especially with some of the approach play. So a little bit concerning there, especially if he's going to be highly owned. I have him at 17.8% right there, which is a little bit too high. Ryan Palmer, I'm not sure what to do with him at 22.8%. I mean, he looked solid today. He was in my 4-round player pool, but the chalk and Showdown is just almost an auto fade because it's that 1-round sample size. You can take guys that are a third or even half of the ownership that have very similar, if not higher chances of succeeding. Like I said before, Robert McIntyre, one of my favorite plays on the slate. If you take a look at all his made cut record for the PGA Tour, he's made 18 of 20 cuts on the PGA Tour, which if I told you that record, you probably wouldn't have believed it, but that's what he's done over his short career so far. And in terms of made cut percentage, he's number 2 on tour in made cut percentage, only behind Jon Rahm. He passed Rory McIlroy about 20 minutes ago with Rory McIlroy's missed cut. So that's the type of player that McIntyre's been. Again, he doesn't have any wins. He doesn't have any top 5s to speak of, but just look at his European tour record. The guy's an absolute stud. His pedigree is well higher than the other guys in this range. And probably, again, like I said before, it might be my favorite play on the slate. Brendan Steele had a really rough day. I'm not even sure if he made the cut. He had at least 1 hole left. He was 1 under par, so right on the cut line there. If he made the cut, I think he's a solid play for tomorrow because much like Russell Knox, people are going to feel burned by him, aren't going to be willing to go back to the guy. Troy Merritt, he had a very average day today. He was right around even par for the most part. He was 1 under when he ended up putting in the score here at -4, but I believe he also had a few holes left to play. I like the skill set fit. I also think that because he's single digit owned, it's very easy to get some leverage there, right? You can put 15 to 20% of your lineups into him and get some significant leverage to the field. And so I'll be doing so for tomorrow's round. Audubon Lahiri, I think, is a little bit of a flash in the pan. Could very well see him flame out sometime soon. Matt Jones had a rough day. Also, somebody who was a cut sweat. We're not sure if he made the cut or not. If he did, though, I do like his skill set fit for this golf course. Lanto Griffin at -3. He shot 7 under today. Very solid day. I would like looking to ride that momentum. And the thing about Lanto is that it's a very sneaky 7 under par, right? A lot of people didn't play him in Showdown. He wasn't a very popular option for 4-round contests either. And he's only at -3. It's not like he's in the top 5 of this golf tournament. I'd venture to say that most people don't know the type of round that he had today. So those are the type of people that I'm looking to ride, right? Whereas somebody like Ryan Palmer, some of the guys towards the top of the leaderboard, they're going to be in that 20 to 25% owned range at the very least. And then we got Lanto here at 7.2%. So that's the type of chalk, quote unquote, chalk that I'm looking to eat for tomorrow. Matthias Schwab is a high upside player. He's got that magic broomstick working from time to time. Really solid approach player as well. Young up-and-coming kid that's going to be a factor on the tour. So keep an eye out for Matthias Schwab for years to come. He's going to be a factor. He's really young, too. I believe he's like 21 or 22 years old. Just an absolute stud. Catch Me If You Can says, I meant Mito's stats looked good. So I think you're okay. Looks like I missed a bunch of chats. Let's go ahead and catch up on chat here. Stephen Davidson says, Woodland had several miracle escapes from trouble today. I'm a fade. Yeah, man, I'm not playing him for tomorrow either because of the ownership. Hopefully he comes back to earth for 4-round stuff, though, because he's the only reason that some of my lineups that start with Siwo or McNeely aren't like in the top 10 or top 5 of GPPs. A lot of those Fratelli, Palmer I have in lineups. I have a bunch of Matt Kuchar, and I even have some Chappell. I have all of those guys that are up there in the top 5. So yeah, hopefully Woodland flames out a little bit because I don't have many studs that are playing well, as you can tell by Siwo and McNeely being the headliners of those lineups. But yeah, man, if he flames out, we could be onto something this week. That's for sure. Devin Davis says McIntyre was leading the field in birdies made at the Masters last year or the year before, if I remember right. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Just a high upside guy. Remember, he actually got out of group play at the match play last year. Ended up beating Bryson DeChambeau for his last match. Ended up driving the green on 18 at Austin Country Club, which that hole's right around 365 yards. No one the entire week drove the green other than Robert McIntyre. So the kid's an absolute stud. Catch Me If You Can says, Knox should be a great play tomorrow. His numbers are sick. How about Mito's stats? Didn't look, but I know he couldn't make a goddamn putt. Yeah, I watched him today. He was one of the guys I was following on track, man. He was hitting a ton of balls to like the 10 to 14 foot range. He had a ton of like those 30, 40 percenters in terms of make percentage, and he made like none of them. So, he was on a little bit of a cold streak. The tee to green play has been there for the entire week. I'm still going to be on Mito, that's for sure. He's a high upside play. Of course, Mito Pereira, somebody I think is going to win sooner rather than later. And at 3 under par, that's not out of the cards this week. He could very well end up coming through for us. So we'll have to see there. I definitely have him in my lineups for tomorrow. Devin says, I think it was a single round, but still he has that upside. Either way, yeah. I mean, look at his pedigree on the European Tour. Yeah, the guy's finishes definitely speak for themselves. Catch Me If You Can says, I meant Mito's stats looked good. Yeah, so I assumed that from before. And Steven says, any Fratelli players tomorrow? Not for me, because he's one of those guys that's at the top of the leaderboard that people that are very casual golf watchers are just going to see the box score and be like, oh, I got to play Fratelli for tomorrow. He played well today. It's a single round sample size. Even for today, it's a single round sample size. So even though he played well, even though I liked him going into the week, if he's going to be chalk tomorrow for Showdown specifically, I don't like that, right? I hope he goes out there and has a solid week. He's in all of my top lineups. But for this specific game theory scenario, I don't know if he's the best play, right? So that's my take on it, at least. But yeah, for 4-round stuff, if he goes out there and has an excellent day tomorrow, I'm not going to be complaining. Let's talk about him here. He's $7,200. He's -8. You can see I'm at 11.5% owned. But like I was saying before with Ryan Palmer, on the other side, guys like Russell Knox, that ownership likely to be a little bit higher than 11.5%. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the casuals end up playing him tomorrow, especially some of the guys that just click on DK or looking to get some action there for round 3. You're going to sort it by score. I know a lot of people do that when they're building lineups, and they just choose guys from the top of the leaderboard, which of course for Showdown isn't always the best strategy. A lot of times we see the guys towards the bottom of the leaderboard that are a little bit more free. They don't have quite the same amount of pressure as those guys towards the top of the leaderboard. Go out there and make a ton of birdies. So I'm more willing to go to a guy like CT Pan that's at 1 under par. He was also somebody right on the cut line there at -1. So not sure if he ended up making the cut or ended up missing the cut. I see someone down there. I'm assuming Pro Reactor means that Strill missed the cut, so that would not surprise me at all. So he had a really bad day today, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if he did that. But we'll have to see on CT Pan. I'm not sure whether he made the cut or not. Obviously, I'm doing this live stream for you guys, so I'm not able to check. Andrew Putnam did make the cut, though. He was at -2. I like going into the week. I like the putting on Poa and Nua. Just needs to turn it around with the approach play. Hasn't looked all that sharp with his irons. If he can put himself in scoreable positions at $7,100, I do like his upside. Certainly capable of getting to that 5 under par score that I'm looking for as a ceiling. Vince Whaley at 2 under par also had a very solid day today. At one point was 4 under par. He was playing alongside, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but it was somebody that was 7 or 8 under par. They were really drafting off of each other. And on hole number 18, I believe he double bogeyed. So gave back a lot of the work that he made up today with that last hole, but was hitting the ball well. He's also a relatively streaky putter. He's a little bit more expensive than I'd like, but he's also only 6.7% owned. So given how he was playing, I'm willing to get there. Doc Redman looked really solid today. He looked good at the Players' Championship, had a top 15 finish there, made a few cuts before that as well. So really trending in the right direction. And in general, this is a solid golf course for Doc Redman. He's a relatively well-rounded player, gains from time to time in every single shots gained category. So certainly someone I have my eye on there. Austin Smotherman, also somebody who was right on the cut line. Not sure if he ended up making it. He was on hole number 18. He was 1 under par, so I'm assuming he at the very least got out of there with the par. At least I hope so. In terms of his approach play, he's got one of the best long iron games in the entire PGA Tour, and that's as a rookie. We take a look at these last 50 measured rounds now. I want to preface this with I haven't checked on the Smother Man in at least 2 to 3 weeks now on these stats, but let's go ahead and check out what his long iron stats look like. What was his price? He couldn't have been that expensive. All right, that's Svensson. Wow. He's got the longest name in history, and I can't find it. All right. Here we go. No, that's the last 24 page. All right, here we go. Austin Smotherman. So what I wanted to show you here is his long iron stats. Look at this. From 150 to 175, number 19 on tour. Over 200 yards, he's number 10 on tour. From 175 to 200, he's number 33 on tour. And he's also really good with his wedges. The only range where he's not a top 33 player on tour is the 125 to 150, which is by far the least common range that they're going to be playing this week at this golf course. So that's why I do like Smotherman. That's why I liked him going into the week. But again, hopefully he made the cut. I'm not able to check that right now because we're here on stream, assuming he did because he was on a par 5 with this last hole. Adam Long, also a similarly good player with those long irons. Very good with his par 5 scoring. So very, again, similar type of player profile there. Patrick Rogers was a core pick for us this week. I love the putting on Poa. I like his distance off the tee. I also like the fact that he can get away with his driving woes, at least with the accuracy off the tee. He definitely has the distance, but accuracy can be a problem from time to time, but not at this golf course. The last 2 guys I'm looking at would be Roger Sloan at $6,400. He had a huge rebound on his final 9 today, shot 4 under par in his last 7 holes to make the cut. So I like the momentum that I saw from Sloan, also only going to be 0.2% owned. And Aaron Baddeley, he's been a play for us the entire week. He hardly ended up making the cut, shot over par today, but he's $6,200, a great putter, great course history here. And if everyone's going to jump ship after a really shaky round 2, I'm going to be right back on him for round 3. He just has the skill set, the course history we're looking for, and the ownership and price I'm looking for as well. Just, again, trivial ownership. You can put him in 1 to 2 lineups and get leverage there. And then in terms of his price tag, at $6,200, there's not that many top-end options I like, but you can play whoever you want. If you put Baddeley into a lineup, you can play all 9K golfers if you wanted to. So gives you a ton of flexibility there. Let's go ahead and catch up down on chat. Then we'll go ahead and talk some strategy, which is probably the most important part of the video, where we can talk about some ownership, how I'll actually be constructing my lineups. Nick says, any advantages to stacking AM or PM tomorrow? Not that I see. We did touch on the weather at the beginning of the video. So if you're looking for an in-depth breakdown of it, make sure to go ahead and kind of skip back and watch that. But in general, it's going to be relatively calm throughout the day. You're looking at I believe it was 4 to 5 mile an hour sustained winds up until right around 11 a.m. And then in the afternoon, it's in the 5 to 7 mile an hour range. So not much wind to speak of, no matter when you're playing. If there's going to be any advantage, it would be to playing in the morning just because of the softer conditions. Also because the greens haven't had as much traffic. They're a little bit less scuffed up by some of the spike marks that some of these players will have. But it would be like a 0.2, 0.3 shot difference at the very most, if not like a 0.1 shot difference. That's usually what we see from morning to the afternoon, if not even smaller than that. So to answer your question, Nick, I would say no, not really a difference from the morning to afternoon wave. Devin Davis says there's a lot of volatile players that made the weekend, even more than a typical cut. Anyone can win this event. Nobody at the top is a lock to stay there. Absolutely agree, especially with some of the wind. I don't want to say windy conditions over the weekend, but they're going to make it slightly more difficult. It's moving day tomorrow. We know that they're going to put some tough pins out there. So I do agree. And I definitely think that guys in that 2 to 3 under par range, like a Tony Finau, have a shot to win this golf tournament. So yeah, we'll have to see. I definitely think we could have a little bit of an interesting weekend, at least for Sunday. I'm hoping that we have a close leaderboard. Catch Me McCann says, your Colin Fratelli has me winning large. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, man, I hope he comes through, right, for my 4-round stuff. But I'm not sure if tomorrow's the day that he shoots 4 to 5 under par. He could shoot like 1 or 2 under par tomorrow, keep us in a great position for our 4-round stuff, yet not pay off for Showdown. That's what I'm expecting. At least that's what I'm hoping. Catch Me McCann says, yeah, Whaley screwed you over on 18 for serious cash. Bogey free until then, too. Oof, I didn't know he was bogey free, but that makes it even worse, man. You get those bonus points for Showdown, bonus points for 4-round stuff. Oof, that kind of stinks. And Austin, smother me in honey. That's it. I'm done. Love the nickname for him. And Steven Davidson says, Vegas had a good day ownership. So for Vegas right now, I have him at 23.4%, which of course is a product of the round that he had today. He was also relatively popular going into the week, so that's also baked into some of these projections. You can see he's not my player pool. Again, a lot of it's just ownership-wise. For Showdown, I'm a lot more sensitive to ownership than I am for 4-round stuff just because it's so volatile. Kind of like, Devin was saying a little bit before, anyone can win this event and anyone can go low at this golf course specifically. It's not a golf course you have to be long to take the 6, 7 under par. It's also not a golf course where you have to be good at one specific thing, right? You got to be good at almost everything to be good here. So yeah, I will be fading Johnny Vegas, but a lot of that is just ownership based and just the fact that it's Showdown in general. All right, let's go ahead and hop over to a lineup building aspect and talk a little bit of strategy for tomorrow. Alrighty, so I have Draftkings up here. Let me go ahead and refresh this though. This is of course the leaderboard needs to update for us. It looks like they didn't remove the guys that missed the cut yet, but that's okay. We know the cut's going to be 1 under par. Let's go ahead and make a GPP lineup to start. So as per usual with this, we're going to have to make sure that we're susceptible to ownership, making sure that we're not just taking all the chalky plays together. And I want your help this time, guys, okay? So right now down in chat, go ahead and put your favorite play on the slate down in the chat. I want to hear from you guys. That way I can kind of get an idea of who you guys want me to actually add to the lineup. If there's anybody that you guys seem to find a consensus on or somebody that's said a little bit more than the others, I'll make sure to go ahead and put them in the lineup. So as of right now, your favorite GPP play on the slate, regardless of ownership, can be in any price range. But let's go ahead and start talking through the strategy. Well, a few of you guys go ahead and put the pick down there in chat so you can help me make this lineup. One pick I think that you pretty much can't avoid on the slate is Tony Finau. Like I said before, the price tag is right on him. Ball striking numbers have been there for Tony this week. It's just the putter that he's waiting for. And on POA, it's the one surface where he finds that from time to time. So I do like him there at $9,000. I think he's almost a must play regardless of format tomorrow, whether it's in cash or for some of these large build GPPs. You see you have 1 vote down there for McIntyre, 1 vote for Streelman. Oh, I like the McIntyre and the Streelman calls. Catch Me If You Can says Mito. You know the way to my heart, man. I love my boy Mito. So yeah, keep putting your picks down there, guys. We'll see if there's any type of a consensus here in the next minute. Let's go ahead and drop down here to the 7K range. Somebody in the 7K range I absolutely love is McIntyre, but somebody voted on him, so we'll wait on that. He might be the guy we end up adding to the lineup from the chat. But somebody in the 7K range that I do like here, let's see. Let's try and save some salary. Let's go to the bottom of the 7K range. We could go to somebody like Hostler. He had a solid day today. Just think the ownership might be a little bit high. Whaley could be the option because a lot of people feel burned by him. Andrew Putnam's really solid because of the putting on POA. We could go to CT Pan. Like I said before, he's going to be relatively low owned. I think CT Pan's the play here because he's going to be like 2, maybe 3% owned at the very most. He's relatively long off the tee. He's a sneaky play. Just no one's going to want to play the guy. I mean, nobody, when you think of golfer, you think of exciting golfers that you're a fan of. CT Pan doesn't really come to mind. So for large field GPP contests, I think he's going to give us some ownership leverage that we very, very badly need. Looks like Snedeker is asking. Snedeker's another guy that people put down here in chat. And it's coming down in the chat. What's going on, Isaiah? Hopefully you're doing well. Told you JT would do great, -5, cheering for him to win. Yeah, dude, I really hope he does well. You know, it's just a matter of time. The guy's been playing some solid golf, and he's gotten a little bit unlucky. So, yeah, man, really glad to see that. And I said, tell him the next time you talk to him that I said, what's up? Catch Me Weekend says, LOL, Whaley burned. Oh, you're talking about the bogey on the last hole. Yeah, dude, I feel you. I feel you on that for sure. But it looks like there's not a consensus down there. So let's go ahead and perhaps add a few of these to the lineup. So let's start with McIntyre. McIntyre, like I said, one of my favorite plays on the slate. I talked about him as somebody that's severely underpriced. And also because of his track record on the European tour, right? He's not a household name on the PGA tour. I think he's going to come in a little bit lower owned than he should be. I also really like the call on Streelman, Nick. So we'll go ahead and put him in the lineup as well. He's only $8,600, so more than affordable for us. He's accurate off the tee. The recent form has been immaculate, right? A few top 10 finishes over the last few starts. Really good course history here as well. Catch Me If You Can says Mito. You know I'm always all right playing some Mito Pereira in my lineups. That's for damn sure. So we'll put him in there at $8,300. And Snedeker would be a little bit too cheap for us. So I'm going to go ahead and pass on Snedeker here. He played really well today, though, Devin. I believe he shot 6 under par. He had 8 birdies on the round. So if he can carry that momentum, I definitely think he could do that. And Devin says Malnati can also get hot putters. So maybe we'll go ahead and swap someone out here. So if we go and swap CT Pan out, because that's not somebody that you guys mentioned, and we go to Malnati. Malnati's only $6,400. Are you kidding me? All right, yeah, we're definitely playing Mito. We're definitely playing Peter Malnati. $6,400 is just way too cheap. And then actually lets us spend up for a stud. So we could take McNeely, which I talked about him before as a potential play. We could take Siwoo because he gets nuclear hot with that putter from time to time. Let's just go ahead and put McNeely in here, right? You still have $500 left on the table. We don't have anybody outside of Malnati that's going to be super low owned, right? You're going to get some ownership on Finau, McIntyre, and Streelman. Mito Pereira always gets a fair amount of ownership. Same thing with McNeely. He's going to be like 18 to 20% owned. So by leaving $500 on the table and by taking somebody that's really sneaky like Peter Malnati, that gives us enough ownership leverage. It also gives us a high enough chance to be unique, even for some of these large field GPPs. This is a great lineup for some of these large field contests. Like I said before, you're looking for upside. Tony Finau just needs the putter to turn around and he can go off. Peter Malnati just has to be good enough ball striking. The putting's always going to be there for Peter. He's one of the best birdie makers on tour. McIntyre, we already talked about him in extensive detail. We talked about Streelman. And the only real question mark here is Malnati, right? And he's a high upside play, which I'm willing to take a few risks on, especially in these large field tournaments. Now, if this were single entry, if this were my main lineup of the week where I'm putting a lot of my bankroll into it, I'm not sure if I'd play Peter Malnati, right? It might be a little bit of a stretch in that type of format. Just because he is so volatile. Now, if I was looking to build a single entry lineup, this would be the only change I make, right? So I was just going to go ahead and show you guys what that would look like. We can go to Doc Redman. He's a little bit of a safer play there, has a little bit of a higher floor. You can go to Smotherman, but again, I don't know if he made the cut or not, so we're going to have to double check on that. Let's just go ahead and put Redmond in there. So the first lineup is more for a large field GPP. This is more for a smaller field, maybe for this single entry type of contest. Just maybe want to be a little bit less ambitious with those guys at $6,400. Let's go ahead and move on to a cash type of build. We'll catch up on chat before we do so. Steven says Hogarth's his favorite play for tomorrow. Devin says Malnati, never a single entry guy. Yeah, exactly. You know the deal with him. He can either go -8 or +8, like you said, no in between. Whereas there's guys like Corey Connors, which single entry contests are a lot better than GPPs because this guy, Corey Connors, he loves finishing in the top 35 of events, right? 26th, 11th, 38th. He's got a few missed cuts in there, which for Corey Connors is actually pretty rare. That's why I ended up fading him this week. I thought his track record was being overblown. He had plenty of missed cuts of late. So it wasn't like he was completely immaculate, but 11th, 22nd, 40th, 17th, 13th. The guy's never finishing in like the top 5, top 10 of events, but he's getting enough done to cash in these smaller field events, right? You don't have to have a ceiling performance to win in a 200, 300 entry type of contest. So it all depends what kind of contest you're in when you're doing this. So for a cash contest, when we're only trying to beat 50% of the field, or even for these multipliers, when we're trying to beat 60, 70% of the field, whatever it may be, we're trying to take some of the chalk, but we're also trying to make sure we're taking safe plays, people with relatively high floors. I know I mentioned Corey Connors as a potentially safe play, but I also think he's a little bit overpriced at $10,200. So even in cash tomorrow, not really somebody I'm looking at. Tony Finau, on the other hand, isn't going to put himself in much trouble because of the ball striking. And regardless of whether he brings the putter to the table or not, should at least be able to get to that 2-3 under par mark. Now that we have our one stud in our lineup, we're going to try and be as balanced as possible with this. So he is going to be the most expensive player in the lineup. I don't hate going to Gary Woodland. As I mentioned, chalk not as much of an issue here for these single entry or these cash type of contests. So even though he is 30, maybe even 40% owned for tomorrow, somebody I'd be willing to use in cash. Moving down to this mid to lower 8K range, I think one of the obvious options that we could go to, I guess, would be Russell Knox at $8,200. I mean, he didn't play that well today, but from a skill set perspective, he's pretty much perfect for this golf course. I also like going to Mito. Of course, he's got a great skill set for this golf course. Towards the top of the 7K range, we could probably even take another 8K golfer. So let's go ahead and put Kuchar in here with his elite course history. The guy shoots under par here pretty much every time he tees it up. And that puts us at $7,600. Brendan Steele, I don't know who mentioned before that Brendan Steele sold, but it looks like he's -2 to me. So I do think he made the cut. So I'm not sure who mentioned that before, but I think you're mistaken because I did, again, just reload this about 10 to 15 minutes ago. So I'm almost positive on that. I would consider using him there because he's accurate off the tee. He's got the approach play that we're looking for. He has plenty of good finishes at TPC San Antonio over the years. And it's one of the few golf courses where he gained strokes putting to the field at. And if Brendan still gains strokes to the field this week with his putting, or even just tomorrow for Saturday's round, he's going to shoot like 5 to 6 under par. So I do like those prospects. So this is the cash lineup I'm going with. You can see it's extremely balanced. The cheapest player is $7,600. The most expensive is $9,000. So not a huge range there between the top end pricing and the low end pricing, but they're all people that I'm very confident get to at least 2, maybe 3 under par tomorrow. Just have the ball striking, either have the course history that we're looking for, or just playing some flat out good golf, like what you have there with Gary Woodland. Now, Woodland, even though I like him in cash contests, just want to reiterate, just because he is a fade for GPPs, even though I expect him to go out there and play well tomorrow, I'm not sure if 40, 50% ownership is adequate, right? So just make sure that you're keeping in mind the type of contests that you're playing in. See if there's any questions down in chat. Catch Me Can says, F Charlie Hoffman. Absolutely agree. So down in the Discord Wednesday night, I asked my boy Dollar Bill about it, who is CBOF. You guys have probably seen him down in chat before. He hates Charlie Hoffman, and I can't blame him. I also kind of hate the guy. He's definitely got some PR issues of late. And I was mentioning down in chat, I was like, so what do we do about Charlie Hoffman? Because, I talked about him as a sleeper pick. I was like very much considering playing him this week. I was like, but I absolutely hate the guy. Like, even if he plays well this week, I'm not going to be very happy with myself. So I ended up actually taking him out of my player pool, which I'm pretty stoked about that. Now, today for Showdown, I did play him. So he ended up burning me today in Showdown. So I agree, catch me if you can, F Charlie Hoffman. But yeah, dude, the guy's career is starting to get lost. I mean, if he can't even compete at this event where he's had so much success at over the years, that is not boding well for his success going forward. But yeah, that's all we've got here for the Showdown stream, guys. I do appreciate you guys stopping by, enjoying the content. I'm going to go ahead and bring up a few of my lineups just to show you guys what I'll be sweating throughout the weekend. And this is a little bit of a reveal for me as well, because I've been doing the stream with you guys for the last hour, and a lot could have changed since the last time we checked. So, all right, brought up my lineup here. This is my highest scoring lineup of the week. So let me go ahead and share my screen here for you guys. This is my highest scoring lineup of the week. I entered the really cheap mini max, actually the smaller of the 2 mini maxes this week. I already got my entries in for next week at the Masters, so that was the main reasoning for that. With the contest dropping early, this being a little bit of an off week, did not play my usual volume, but we're in 42nd place, which I'll take, right? It's 42nd out of 17,000 entries. We have McNeely in there, who did end up making the cut, thank Lord. We had Tony Finau -3, Luke List at -2, but the three really big hitters who I mentioned them before as key pieces in my player pool, Palmer, Glover, and Fratelli, absolutely carrying my lineups. People that are, of course, standouts there. But if guys like Tony Finau, Luke List, which are only 4 to 5 strokes back from 5th and 2nd place on the board, could go out there and really change my week. So we'll have to see how these three studs up top do. In general, a lot of my lower tier, actually lower price plays ended up playing well. Actually, that wasn't my highest scoring lineup. I was scrolled down a little bit there. I have a lineup in 39th place. So the only difference between the two is that one has McNeely, the other has Siwoo Kim. So hopefully Siwoo or McNeely can play well this weekend. Hopefully Tony Finau and Luke List can come through as well, because this lineup, or I should say both of these lineups, would be in pretty good spots. Number 59, you can see I had a lineup with Bryson that shot +5, yet it's still in the top 100 of this event. So obviously hit pretty well with my other positions there. But that's what I was mentioning before about my best lineups having Siwoo or McNeely. It's interesting, right? I believe this lineup at 120 has Rory, right? So you can see a lot of my lineups where I spent up for somebody in that 10K range didn't bode all that well this week. And it's not just the fact that those guys up top missed the cut. Even if a Rory McIlroy would have ended up shooting 1 under, or, Bryson somehow ended up shooting 1 under from 5 over or something like that, these lineups still wouldn't have been my highest scoring lineups of the week. So it's not just the fact that they missed the cut that was the issue. It's the guys that I was pairing with them. Because you can see with my lineups that are in 39th and 49th place, it's balanced, right? You're able to fit a bunch of guys in this 8K range, like a Palmer into lineup. So that's important. That's why a lot of my scores coming from there, or guys in the 7K range toward the bottom, not having to dive into that 6K range, because outside of a few notable exceptions, most notably Chappell, he was a 6K golfer going into the week. You're not going to have a ton of guys that scored highly down there. So just to give you guys an idea, you can see there's another lineup with Rory there, which would have been a little bit better. There's another 6 of 6 here that I have down here at 282nd place, which also has McNeely in it, also has Luke List. So recurring theme with some of my top lineups, those two players in it. But you guys can see that a lot of my best lineups, pretty much every single one of them has Ryan Palmer. So he's kind of carrying us to this point of the week. Really hope that he has a solid end to the weekend. Looks like a Masters look ahead. Actually, you know what? Why not? Why not, guys? Why don't we do that? So let me go ahead and bring up the DraftKings pricing for the Masters, and we're going to do this quickly, but why not? Good idea, dude. Because we're going to have a lot of content to come. I am working on the course breakdown. In fact, it's actually already recorded. I just have to go ahead and edit that together and get that up for you guys. But let me go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll do a little bit of a Masters first look ahead, because that is a great idea. So here we go. Got the player pool up on the screen. Oh, I did the wrong player pool. 1 second, guys. I hit Masters. Why did it do that? All right, here we go. Let's retry that. This window is the Masters window. There we go. Alrighty, so of course with the Masters, guys, we get some really soft pricing. So even though Scottie Scheffler's $11,000, that's a little bit expensive. Just take a look at this 9 and 8K range. It's absolutely beautiful. It says Hideki Matsuyama's out. Just gonna say he's probably playing the Masters, even though he withdrew here. Just saying. But you guys got Cantlay, Koepka here. Koepka's gonna be one of the hottest plays of the week. I would actually say that he's going to be in like that 20 to 25% owned range, just because of how he played at the WGC. Of course, it's major championship season, so people are going to love themselves some Brooks Koepka. You have guys like DeChambeau down at $9,100. Lowry at $8,800 looks pretty solid. I'm not playing Tiger Woods at $8,500, guys. He is in the field. He is going to be playing, which is super cool. I'm super excited to see it. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, being able to have Tiger Woods back on the golf course. But for DFS side, guys, don't play him. It's not going to go that well for him. He might make the cut, but he's not going to finish in the top 10 like you need. And one thing I'll say about the Masters, because we're going to talk about this in full detail next week, though, is like everyone's going to make the cut. There's 90 players in the field this year for the Masters. There's 7 past champions, which have pretty much no chance at all to end up making the cut, which means you're going to have like 83 golfers trying to get in the top 70 or top 72 in ties to make the cut, because it is a normal cut line roll. Actually, I take that back. I believe they changed it. Do not take my word on that. I actually believe it's not the top 65 in ties. I believe it's top 50 in ties. But in either circumstance, you're going to be seeing probably like 55 to 60 players getting through the weekend with all of the ties that get in there with the top 50 in ties. And that's going to be around 70, maybe 80% of the field, which means that 6 of 6 percentages are going to be like 20, 25% at the very least at the Masters, if not higher, if a lot of the chalk ends up making the cut, which means that if Tiger Woods ends up finishing in like 25th place, which that'd be amazing for Tiger Woods given his condition, that's not going to matter. You're not going to need Tiger Woods. You're going to have guys that are finishing in the top 10. And for as great of a story as it is, Tiger Woods is not finishing in the top 10. I can say that pretty definitively. Abraham Answer, it also has him as out here. He's probably going to be playing the Masters. He just withdrew from this event. That's why he's marked as out. A few other people we can talk about that stand out to me. I think Corey Connors is going to be mega chalk at $7,600. A few sleeper picks down to the 7K range. I think Max Homa. He's going to be a part of one of these major championships sooner rather than later. So he's probably somebody who makes my player pool this week, or say next week there for the Masters. Harris English might be playing at the Masters, but the guy's dealing with an injury, so I probably wouldn't be playing him in DFS. He had surgery less than a month and a half ago. So just that there's a lot of question marks with Harris English there. I'm surprised he's even in the player pool or even in the field for this week. In the 6K range, you have quite a few good names, right? Ryan Palmer, if he ends up pulling this thing out this week, is going to be even chalkier than he already would have been at $6,500. Lucas Glover might be chalky if he ends up having a really solid week like he started out so far. You could see guys like Migliozzi, who had a horrible week this week, probably be like 0.1% owned next week. But the last time that he played at the Masters, if you guys remember, he finished in the top 10. Like he went out there and completely broke out onto the board. He also played pretty well at the U.S. Open as well. So might be a sleeper pick to take a look at $6,200. And then you get all these guys that are the past champions, right? Like Olazabal, Mize, Lyle, Couples, Langer, Singh. People that aren't going to make the cut. So let's see. Let's count them all. We have Mike Rear, who's also going to be one of those people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's at least 10 players that have no business in making the cut this week. James P.O. probably not going to make the cut. Just Takumi Kanaya probably also not going to make the cut. So you're looking at legit like 75, maybe 70 players in the field this week. They're even legitimately worth considering, right? There's a lot of guys that we can just exclude from our player pool, which is why, like I said before, guys like Tiger Woods, who might end up making the cut, are just kind of useless, right? You need them to actually be able to finish in the top 5, top 10. And I hate to say it, guys. I hate doubting Tiger Woods because he proves us wrong every single time. But the guy is less than a year removed of almost having his leg amputated. He looked decent at the event over there with his son, right? But when you compared his play to Justin Thomas, he was like clearly head and shoulders below Justin Thomas. And Justin Thomas is 20-1 to win this golf tournament. I mean, even for Justin Thomas, the top 10 here, you would think that's a really good week for JT. So just keep that in mind with Tiger Woods. The guy is the greatest of all time, but there's limits to the madness. English is out. Doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I figured he would have been out. I was surprised he was even in the player pool there. He's like literally had hip surgery like a month and a half ago. Kishmi Kansas, thanks for the info. Absolutely appreciate you stopping by. Glad you enjoyed it. And Steven says for the Masters, Cam Smith or can't play. I'm not going to say can't play. So Cam Smith. I think that he's going to be popular because of the Players Championship, but I don't care. The guy's an absolute stud. The last 2 times at the Masters, the guy's been in the top 10 at one point in the golf tournament. Almost ended up winning last year. So yeah, man, Cam Smith's going to be the pick for sure. I appreciate you guys stopping by. That's all I'm going to have here for the Showdown stream. If you're watching this on replay, do not be shy at all to go ahead and leave a comment with any questions that you have. We will be doing the same thing tomorrow. I'm assuming it's going to take them forever to finish their rounds, even though it is cut down to only 71, 72 players, whatever it ended up being. So expect the live stream at like 8 o'clock p.m., right? 8 p.m. Eastern time. I would assume right around the same time tomorrow. Prize pick stuff dropping tonight. So if you're looking for those prize picks props, make sure to keep an eye out for that video. And of course, Masters content next week. Really looking forward to it. A course breakdown will be dropping in the next day. Expect a core picks video probably dropping sometime Sunday, and some type of extra content throughout the week as well. I'm going to make sure to put a lot of extra stuff out there because it's Masters week. Going to be a lot of eyes on golf, and want to make sure I give you guys everything you need. Until next time, guys, good luck with all of your lineups here for Saturday, and let's get this cash.